everyone, Madeline Dell here, the Chapter Goddess. I am a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, podcaster, producer, and overall creative. With this show, I really want to focus on creatives and bring their authentic self to life. How are they motivated to pursue their passions? What have been the struggles along the way? Does self-care play an important role in who they are today and how they connect with the creative flow? Bringing one's authentic self to the forefront is important in this world that we live in currently. Sharing your self-care, your tips, and how you stay on track for things without losing it completely is also important. Self-care is not talked about enough, and authenticity and self-care are what I like to highlight with my creatives, as well as getting to know them. So get ready for a fun and entertaining show. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get ready to meet this episode's guest. Today's episode is sponsored by Creative Edge Publicity. Hey guys, welcome back to another fun episode of the Chapter Goddess Chat. I have another amazing author for you guys to meet today. We're going to be talking about some work she's got out, some new stuff coming out next month, and just anything that comes up in casual conversation. I mean, of course, we're going to talk about self-care and stuff because that's part of what I do as an author is bring that into focus and just with any creative. But enough about me. Hit that like button real quick if you haven't. And let's meet today's guest. Hey, Kim, welcome to the show.
Hello. Oh, thank you. I've been looking forward to this. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes, thanks for agreeing. So go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about who you are and what you create.
Well, let's see. I am a mom. I'll go with personal stuff. I'm a mom, soon to be a father, which I'm super excited about. That's coming along in October, and it's going to be a little girl. So I'm excited. But I'm also an author. I'm an author, multi-published author. And let's see, I'm a podcast host. The name of my podcast is Let Fear Bounce. I also have a television show called The Right Stuff. That's WRITE, The Right Stuff, the author's voice, where I have authors on and we chit chat about their journeys, not necessarily about their books, but about why they write, what they write, and about them starting. And I'm sure you could say the same. I have met some amazing people from all over the world. And that's been a driver for me, is giving a platform to those so they can share their stories and others can learn from them, and they can toss out those little nuggets of hope to people, whether it has to do with writing or personal or self-care, because so many people deal at some point in their lives, or maybe every day, with some sort of issue, whether anxiety, depression, loneliness, grief, what have you. We've all been through it. And if we haven't yet, we will. That's just life. And so I like to call it tossing out nuggets of hope. And so that's what I do, a little bit about who I am. And I'm also a veteran, and I'm a huge veteran advocate, and I support homeless or soon to be homeless veterans, as well as female veterans that live with PTSD due to sexual assault.
Let's talk a little bit about how you're involved with the women with PTSD and everything. What kind of drew you toward that?
I'm one who lives with PTSD for that reason. That I support the other women. So it took a long time. It took a long time to that little room that I had locked all of that stuff in. It took
Mhm.
close to 15 years. And it was just through the grace of God and my veteran brother who noticed symptoms. They said, "We don't know what's going on with," and they call me kid because they're all Vietnam combat veterans. So they're like 20 years older than me. And they said, "We don't know what's going on with you, kid, but we recognize the symptoms and we're going to get you to the VA." And I said, "No, I'm fine. I don't need anybody and I don't need any help. I'm fine." And they said, "You will go to the VA and talk to someone. And if you don't go on your own, we will drag you kicking and screaming."
Yeah.
And they did. I was
I
not
bet
a
that
happy
was
camper.
eventful.
And
Yeah.
they, but
Ooh.
I look back now to my younger self and see
Mm.
what they did for me. I am so ridiculously thankful. I mean, so thankful. And I can see myself back then in others now. And it's given me, it's enhanced my empathy. I've always been a very, very empathetic person. I mean, crazy empathetic, but
Yeah.
that's been enhanced. I've learned that things that happen to you do not define you. And I let it
Mm.
define me for way too long by
Yeah.
stuffing all that stuff in, all that darkness. Now, do I still go there every once in a while? Yeah, every once in a while I do. But now I have the toolbox filled with all kinds of stuff that I can dig into and say, not today, pull it out, whether it's self-affirmations or whether it's prayer, whatever it is that someone does, whether it's turning on good music or walking my dog, what I do, I get outside.
Yes.
Nature, no matter the weather, no matter the season, I'm out there. And that's where I breathe and I can think and pray. And that heaviness just off me. And you can just go, okay, all right, we're good now. I got through that. See, now, and can just keep going. And sometimes it's a day by day thing. Sometimes it's an hour by hour thing. It all depends on how your day's going or your week or your month, maybe your year, because outside stressors play a big part on PTSD. Those who live with PTSD, stress exacerbates things. And so, if you've got all kinds of stuff going on with your family members, your parents are ill or in the hospital or an accident, terminal illness, what have you, that can all, you learn as you go. And and it's been years. Please don't think that this is something I woke up and said, I'm perfect today.
Yeah.
Did not that way. This has been a journey and it'll continue to be a journey. It'll continue to be a journey. But I've also been able to take what I've learned about myself and others for the years, that people feel very comfortable talking to me, especially veterans, because I've been there, done that. Maybe not this same specific event or trauma or what have you, but I get it. There is a difference between the civilian world and the military world. They're completely separate, and you have a different mindset when you come out of the military or when you're still in. You have a different mindset. You see the world different. You look at yourself different because you're supposed to be strong, show no weakness.
Yeah.
And then when you're a civilian, you're supposed to be strong and show no weak. But that's ingrained in your brain after years and years. And it's very hard to open that door to anything you might perceive as a weakness. So that's a tough one. And that's still tough. That's what I struggle with still, because I'll look in the mirror some mornings and say, well, I won't share what I say.
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself, I have to remind myself, Kim, you are a strong individual. Look what you've overcome. Look what you've accomplished because of it. And look at people that you can help because of it. So you have to change your mindset on how you look at, for me, speaking for me, I had to change my mindset on how I looked at trauma and how I perceive others and how I can interact with others that I know have been through a trauma. Because you might meet someone and they're having a crappy day, but you don't know that. You just think, wow, they were a crab. I don't want to have anything to do with them. But you have no idea what battles they may have fought while trying to sleep the night before.
That's true. Yeah. Ooh. So did the writing help kind of get through that?
At first, when I was first approached, I was approached to participate in an anthology. So I would have a chapter in it. And she said, "What would you like to write about?" And I gave her my idea. And she said, "No, it's not really what I'm looking for. You're a," and I said, "Yeah." And that, and she said, "Well, do you want to do anything, your military experience?" And I went, "No." Started talking a little more. And this was years ago, and I had never shared it. And she was asking me to share it in a book. I did. It's not my best writing ever when I look back on it. And I noticed how I kept everything very, very general, but you still got the gist. And that was the first time. And after I did that and it was out, it almost like another piece of that weight was taken off. And then since then, I was just like, I do like writing, and I write a lot of, when I write things, I typically write, if it's about me, I write in the third person.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I do it all the time. And so why do you always write in the third person when it comes to personal stuff? And I hadn't thought about it. And then I realized, because I'm distancing myself from it when I do it in the third person. It's much easier to write about someone that I'm looking at instead of looking at myself.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. That's a really curious thing, because a lot of authors, some of them will switch back and forth. And like me, I find myself writing in first person more often than third person. And it's kind of like I have to really focus to get myself to write in third person. And it's so weird, but that is a very interesting point in how authors write and their point of view. So that makes me curious about why others do that.
Right. And I don't know anybody else. Well, when I'm writing other stuff, it's only when I'm writing personal stuff. Other things that I write, emotion driven, which comes from nature. So it's kind of like this little cycle thing I have. I use all 5 senses, and I typically, when I'm things, there's an awful lot of referencing back to how the wind sounds as it blows through the leaves in the trees, or how the sun looked as it shined upon a little tiny hanging off the tip of this blade of grass in the morning. And I bring nature in a lot to writing personally, and in all the senses, 5 senses. And I found it's also a really good practice to do, because people are like, "Well, how did you start doing that?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not educated in writing. I went into the military a month after graduation. I'm not educated. I'm humbled that I have and to bring forth emotion from the readers. And to me, that's the highest praise. If I get an email or a text message and it's, "Oh my goodness, magazine, and you brought me to tears. I cried the entire time." Or, "You had me laughing so hard I thought I was gonna pee my pants."
Nice.
To me, that's high praise. That is the highest praise.
Yeah. And you mentioned that being your version of what success looks like too on the pre-questionnaire. That is perfect for that, because that is really like, what you are creating is affecting others. I also like that you're tying in nature, because I am also a very outdoorsy person and I go to nature for healing and stuff too. So it's just, you're also sharing that with the world as well.
I think so often people just don't take the time
Mm-hmm.
to look, just to look.
Yeah.
You know, you're missing out on all these amazing things. And it is simple as, one fly and blown a wind. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
It's poetry in motion. There's a
It
whole
is.
story going on there.
Yeah. Paw prints on the couch. Where did you get the inspiration for that one?
I just adore animals, and my dogs, I have the one now, and then the one I had prior to him that unfortunately passed away. He was 14. But as one who lives with PTSD, my dogs, for me personally, have been my rock, have been my foundation at times, and they intuitively know when they need to be, or when they need to just come clean, or get with their nose. And my dogs are such a huge part of my life. And my other dog's name was Digger. I had to say goodbye to him about 4 years ago. And, looking back on his the hundreds of miles that we walked together, and the thousands and thousands of tears that his fur caught, keep me through the roughest, darkest time of my life. I felt this to me against the world and him. And when I had to say goodbye to him, I was devastated, is putting it lightly. It was so, so hard. And 6 months later, I did get another one because the house was too dang quiet. And I've had him close to 4 years now, and he's starting to get that intuition thing in. And animals to me are amazing because they are pure souls that all they want to do is love you and care for you and protect you. And our job as humans, I feel, is to do the same for them. So I've been wanting to write a book, or at least get a book out there. I didn't do this Prince on the Couch. It's an anthology. It's got people that have heard their stories about their pets and how they've enriched their lives and changed their lives and even at times saved their lives. So I am really, really looking forward to getting this one out into the world. And then after that, maybe next year, the next one will be just stories about my own dogs. And that one's going to be paw prints on the kitchen floor.
Oh, I love it. I'm a huge animal lover too. I have 4 cats, 3 dogs, and we've got 2 fish too. I grew up on a farm, and I know during high school and stuff, my go-to support animal was my horse. So she got to have a lot of tears and stuff on her too. But she passed away while I was away in college, and it's still those emotions, they're always going to be there. It's heavy. It's not as heavy as when they first left you, but the difference in your life, our lives they make, it's precious. So I love that you're including that.
It's immeasurable is what it is.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So with writing the story for this anthology, did it what was the process like? Did you sit down and just hash it all out before going back and editing, or do you have a edit as you go process?
I am one of those people, and I call it word vomit.
Yes. I
I
do that
just
next
get
day.
it
I call it
all
that
out.
too.
I just get it all because it'll come to me. It comes a rush, and I'll
Yeah.
get it all out, and then I walk away for a day or two. And I always say I'm letting it simmer. I let it simmer for a bit, and then I'll come back
I
and
lost the camera, Kim.
look at it and edit it, or think, what? All right, word vomit. I get it all out. It comes, actually, stories come to me in a rush. They just, so I hurry up and I get it all out, and then I walk away for a day or two and just let it simmer for a bit. And then I come back and reread it and edit or tweak or delete or sit there and think, what were you thinking when you wrote that? So that's kind of how I do it. And then I have to stop myself from over editing, because I'll keep going back to it. And I'm like, Kim, all right, you have looked at this 12 times.
Yeah.
That's enough. Is this even a decent story? Oh my gosh, who's going to want to read this? And then it's like that little devil perches on your shoulder, and that negative self-talk that you start giving yourself. And I'm like, Kim, stop it. Stop it.
Yeah. And it makes me happy that you call it word vomiting, because I have not met anybody else that calls it that till now. And I guess that's what I do. I'm like, I just have to like brain dump and word vomit just so. My husband will give me crap all the time. He's like, you're just word vomiting at me right now. I'm sorry. I just need to get it out. Like, it just, it's really bad when I get a new story idea. And I'm like, can I just like talk to you about this for a minute? Like bounce it off you. And then I'm going to go work on it. And he's like, I don't understand where you're going with that. I was like, don't worry about it. Like, you don't have to. I just need to get it out. So listen and like chill.
Yeah. Right.
So the whole like letting it simmer and then moving into it, I like how you've got that idea going for the editing process. How long from start to finish did it take for you to complete the paw prints on the couch? Do you know how many months it took?
We're going on about 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot involved when you do an anthology, because it's not just my story. It's everyone else's stories that need to be read and reread and reread and edited and sent back and forth. And then, of course, you've got the formatting and all of that needs to be taken place, cover design. There's so much behind the scenes that people that aren't in that realm might not be aware of or realize just how much and what makes a book published. You don't just write it and pop it on Amazon.
No.
There's an awful lot of research involved too, on book covers or book titles, and categories and all of that you need to look into and have in place prior. And then, of course, you want to have all of the stuff that you're getting in line for your launch, or are you going to do a stealth launch and do it quietly for a week or two and then start blasting it out? Are you going to build a launch team? If you are, how? Who are you going to pull in on it? What's your email list look like? Do you need to bulk that up? Do you have enough people? How much of this time is it going to take for you to do this? So the list is endless, which I'm sure you're aware of. But for those maybe listening or watching that aren't in the realm, it's a lot. And I do the bulk of it myself. So that's even more time consuming.
It is a lot. Like, I've been lucky to be involved with part of the planning and promotion that goes into a few anthologies that I've got to be part of. But I have no idea how the person organizing it and actually doing it and putting it together does not lose their mind. So, because I know not everybody that submits actually goes through a really good editing process. And I'm one of those, I'm like, no, I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible on you. And I send it to an editor before I submit it or send it in. Because I'm like, at least it's been professionally looked over before they see it,
Right. And a lot of folks that participate in anthologies, they've never written before.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh.
You know, they've never been published. It might be published. They have no background in writing, and their stories are very, very personal to them. And I completely understand that. And editing, and I try to gently possible say prior, when it starts going through the editing process, you cannot take any suggestions that are given personally.
Yeah, that I will say was one of the hardest like things to get past as a new author. And speaking as new authors, people beginning their journey into this field, what is something you would offer them in advice as they kind of begin to muddle their way through this journey?
I think it doesn't matter what genre you write in. I think for me, and this is just, I'm going with personal experience, go with your heart, with your, because when you write and you're using and you're going with your heart, it will come across as so authentic and personal. Because once you write your story, it's so personal out. But once it's in book form, it's really no longer yours because you offered it to the world. And when they read it, they're going to be taking maybe a completely different, they're going to take it a different way than what you meant as you wrote it. So you've got to have a thick skin. You do have to toughen up your skin a little bit, because not everyone's going to love what you write, and they're not meant to. You're not the author for everyone. There are brilliant authors out there that I have literally no interest in reading their stuff. It's just because it's not my thing. Now there's other authors I can't wait until their next book comes out. You know, so your book is not for everyone. So don't. Here's another thing I think that new writers, and I've found this a lot. Okay, anybody could read it, enjoy it. No, that's not true. Anybody will not read and enjoy it. So you've got to narrow that down. Who is your reader? Who is your audience? People are probably tired of hearing that, but it's so true. Who is your reader? Who are you writing for?
Yeah. And it changes every time you write something, create something, it changes. Regardless of what you think, it does. Like there's going to be a little bit of change every time. So you kind of have to get in that mindset of resetting and recreating the ideal audience.
You're right. Yeah. That's a really good point that you bring up, because as authors, and you know this, I know this, we write different things all the time. I'm not always writing about dogs. You know, I write about so many other things, and you do have to. And once you get into your groove, you get a feel for it. You really do. And when you have those days where you feel discouraged, or you're like, I can't think of anything to write that's even going to sound good, then don't write that day.
Yeah. Just take that day and rest.
Right. Just take a break. It's okay to walk away. I think as authors in general, at times put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves. And I know I do. And so I do have to walk away and get outside, take my dog for a long walk or something. Then I can come back to it refreshed and with maybe a better mindset, and I can see it differently. And then I can just keep going. But that's don't take offense when you have your work edited, which you should do. Don't edit everything yourself, please.
No.
Actually get an editor. That's tip 1.
Yes.
But don't take it personally when it comes back, because they're there doing their job to help your story be the best that it can be. And when it's reached that level and it's ready to go out in the world, that is cause for celebration, because you did it. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. And I'm really bad about pushing myself. Like I have to get this many books out this year. And you also just realize you're in control of what you put out there. Yeah. So, but let's talk more. I'm going to take us back to the self-care idea because you mentioned walking and getting outside with your dogs and stuff. When did you discover that was the best thing for you personally?
I thought the exact thing a while back, and I realized that I've always done that.
Hmm.
I've always done that since I was a young girl. I lived in a small town, grew up in a small town. Now still I live in the country. But as a young girl, if things were tough at school or tough at home, I was always out in the woods, or I would run down to the pond or go out in the woods and sit by the creek. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm thinking, that started when I was little. That I instinctively knew that my person, my brain, my soul knew that it had to get outside. It had to be out there because that's where my soul is fed. It feels like.
Yeah.
So I think from since I was a young girl.
That is awesome. And I kind of can relate to that because growing up in the country, that's kind of like your go-to thing. So before we get to our closing stuff, let's talk a little more about your anthology, Hope Found Me. Tell me a little more about what your story's like in there and where you found the inspiration for that at.
When Hope Found Me, it's an anthology of numerous people, about 50 that came together to share their stories of hope found them. Maybe it was a time in their life or a time of loss or grief, whatever the case may be, they shared that. And I wanted to put this one together simply because in looking back, I had this day where the word hope was everywhere. It was literally showing up everywhere. Stuff I read, I would hear it in songs, I'd see it on television. And I realized that I was supposed to be doing something with the word hope, but I wasn't sure. And so that just stuck. It stayed with me and it's still with me. And this is going on 2 years now. This word hope is still constantly nudging me from, I always do this. It comes from behind. It nudges me to help others get their stories out there. So that's where When Hope Found Me came from. And it's kind of morphed into a whole journey of providing little hope nuggets to people as I go through this journey. So I literally got little stones and with me everywhere. And when I feel so nudged or I see someone that I feel like I think I'm supposed to talk to them, so I do. I approach strangers and literally just say, I would like to give you a nugget of hope today. And
Aww.
they're surprised. But they always hold out their hand and I just gently put it in their hand and I say, I hope you have a blessed day. And I turn and walk away. I don't chit chat. I don't ask them who they are or where they're from or anything because I don't think I'm supposed to. I'm just supposed to give them that. And I've had tears and laughter and hugs. And one older gentleman, incredible anger. He was very angry and yelled at me in Walmart. And that was fine too, because I realized that whatever it was that he was going through, it wasn't me he was yelling at. Mm-hmm. And as I walked away with tears in my eyes, not because he yelled, hurt him, I walked away thinking, you know what? He will go home, empty out his pockets, put it in that dish that's on the whole table. He's probably in these, and maybe he was really ill, and this was his first time out, just trying to get groceries and trying to get through it, and he was tired and get out of the store and get home. Maybe he's been caring for an ill wife. Maybe she has Alzheimer's, and it's so tiring, and he's getting sick himself because he can't sleep, he can't eat, he's got to care for her. She keeps getting up at nighttime. He has to lock her in the house. all this stuff.
Yeah.
Who knows what he's going through? So he might not have appreciated that little nugget that day, but maybe the next day when he went down and he looked down and he went to grab his change and whatever to put in his pockets, and he picked it up and looked at it, maybe that is the moment that he went, oh, that lady, that strange lady in the store yesterday gave me this. And it was supposed to hit him the next day, you know? So I keep doing that. I carry them with me. They're always, and I always have one in my hand when I'm working at my desk, and I have them in my pockets or in my purse. And so that's just kind of a carryover, you know. It started with the book, and this, which turned into little cards that I got made. And I made these to give to people so they can give to people. It says you're in Nugget of Hope Day. And on the back, it says the world is a better place because you're in it. And I made these to just say, hey, I want to give you a nugget of hope, but then here's one that you can give someone when you feel. And so that's something I literally just started doing too. And it's just that I'm supposed to be doing. And you know, it's not, I'm not like or anything. It's literally, I think it's what I'm supposed to, well, no, I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I just call it out, tossing out nuggets of hope.
I love it. And I totally feel like I want to adopt that same habit because that's beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Because I was having a bad day once and I actually pulled into, had to pick up something at Walgreens. I don't remember what it was. And there was this strange looking object on the concrete barrier. The sidewalk was up higher than the parking lot and stuff. And I was like, what is that? And I got out and it was this decorated rock and it said you were loved or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it just brightened my day. So I know for a fact that doing stuff like that does affect people and it can change the entire day for them. So that's a beautiful thing to do. And I highly recommend more people do that. Honestly.
So I have another book. No, I do too. I have another book that I'm working on. It's going to be released a couple months after Paw Prints, but it's called Nuggets of Hope. And it's the tagline or the subtitle is Practice Kindness. Yes. And the whole book is about this journey of me with my stones, but it's also just giving you practical ideas and reasons why you yourself shouldn't be doing this too. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be a stone. It doesn't even have to be a little card like I made. This is just something I came up with on my own. Simply giving someone a smile. Simply giving someone a smile is a nugget of hope. Give someone a hug, for goodness sake. Give them a hug. Send them a card in the mail. The snail mail, a real card for someone to actually receive and open. That is a nugget of hope right there. It costs you nothing to be kind. And I think that the world needs a whole lot more of it.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. I think so. Mm-hmm. Well, Kim, go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you and all of your amazing books and utilize that stuff to inspire the world around them.
Easiest place is literally just go to my website, which is kimlenglingauthor.com. And it's KIMLENGLING author.com. My contact information's in there. Everything I'm doing, working on now, what's coming up in the future, all on there. That's the easiest place to check it all out. I also, hey, tune into my podcast, Let Fear Bounce. That's on Spotify. Can catch some nuggets of hope through there too.
Yes. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the chat today.
Oh, this was fun. This was so fun. Thanks so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to get future notifications when shows come out. Also, be sure to check out my website. I have a blog featuring this creative with some other fun and interesting questions. You can also subscribe to my newsletter there to stay up to date with all things the chapter goddess in Madeline Dale. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great rest of the day.